Low art, high craft, and exquisite spatulas, destroying the barriers that separate us from art and from each other, by Mike Craighead. Part 3 of 3. This is a short audiobook cut into podcast-sized slices. It's my statement about art and how I think it works and why it's so important, but it's also a call to action for all of us to slightly shift the way we look at art, along with everything else humans do well, in a way that just might bring us all a little closer together. Visit lowarthighcraft.com for print versions, audiobook, ebook, and all kinds of other things. Chapter 5. Moving Forward. Contemplating a purported work of art is a social activity. Either you have a rewarding time or you don't. You don't have to say why afterward. You don't have to say anything. Kurt Vonnegut, Timequake, 2007. Don't think about making art, just get it done. Let everyone else decide if it's good or bad, whether they love it or hate it. While they are deciding, make even more art. Andy Warhol. Creative fields make for crap careers. Elizabeth Gilbert. go.ted.com/creativelife 2015. The primary benefit of practicing any art, whether well or badly, is that it enables one's soul to grow. Kurt Vonnegut,
We tend to rely upon divisions and hierarchies and categories
Authors
to
note.
help us decide what's important.
Chapter 5 is where I attempt
to take all the ideas from the previous chapters and turn them into
actionable
actionable
advice
resonance
that might make the
instead.
world a little better.
If we
I'm struggling to
unapologetically
follow it
liked what we
because
like
I'm
and back
bad
that
at
up with our
listening to
attention and
You're
wallets,
welcome to struggle along.
it's okay to outright ignore critics or to simply allow them to have less impact on our own opinions. We can like our thing and allow the folks who don't like our thing the space to not like it. It's just not for them, and that's okay. Of course, this gets harder when we're talking about a thing we made, because when someone doesn't like that, it feels personal. But it's not. The thing we made is not for everyone. It's for our audience, not for the weenie heads going out of their way to saying they don't like it. You're not for everyone, and neither am I. We can simply choose to embrace that, can't we? Think about why you like what you like. It's healthy to look objectively at our preferences. Sometimes that can lead to a revelation that restructures the way we interact with art. A little self-examination can reveal that we're too stuck in our comfort zone and we should look around for new influences, new frequencies at which we might resonate. We may be appalled to learn of a favorite artist's weenie-headedness and be faced with the choice of whether or how to let them go. I have a very hard time separating the art from the artist, and I often find that art I used to love can lose all its resonance with me when it's revealed that its creator is a truly terrible person, or even if they register just a little too high on the jerk scale. Is it too much to expect of an artist that they also not be a jerk? Perhaps. I just happen to be tuned to a frequency in which jerkiness interferes with my ability to engage with art. I'm likely missing out on some good work because of this, but I'm confident that there are plenty of other non-jerks out there making things I'll eventually discover and love, so I'm okay with cutting a few favorite disappointments loose from time to time. We may discover an entirely new genre of music or film by breaking the boundaries we inevitably build around our likes and dislikes. Our biases efficiently prevent us from seeing entire chunks of the world, so it's worthwhile to try to keep them in check. Our relationship with art and with the world at large is healthiest when it's in a constant state of evolution. That means maintaining a willingness to intentionally subject ourselves to the unknown. That can be uncomfortable, but it's good for us, like broccoli and yoga. I'm very bad at this, but I'm working on it. Honor good work. Buy the thing you like at a craft fair, even if you could make it yourself. Of course you can. But it will take time and effort and tools and materials and at least a little trial and error and profanity. And admit it, you're probably not going to make it yourself. If it resonates, bring it home with you. If you can't afford it, compliment the creator or tell your rich friend about it so they can buy it. Then introduce me to your rich friend because I have this really great investment opportunity for them. If something is well made, try to take a moment to acknowledge it, even if it's only to yourself. Appreciating good work connects us with each other. And we need more things that do that. Notice the expertly welded downspout. Celebrate the exquisite spatula. There was a point in my art education when I became surrounded by nothing but art majors. No mathematicians dabbling in paint, no biologists playing with clay. In those upper division classes, a growing amount of time and energy was being devoted to what could be said about art instead of the art itself. During a critique in a sculpture class of a welding project, A student was basically told that his work wasn't really art because it had a function. It was a working barbecue grill decorated with an exquisite polished steel salmon and precise zigzagging indigenous basketry motifs, and it was gorgeous. I wish I could have managed to speak up at the time, but I was young and silly and stunned into silence. To this day, recalling that incident still makes me cranky, but it crystallized the problem I'd been struggling with, that the definition of art, to which we'd all grown accustomed, is elitist and yucky. Had we been honoring the resonance of that student's work instead of its adherence to the accepted definition of art, that critique would have ended much differently. I do hope that guy is okay. I think one of the silliest notions humans ever cooked up was the idea that real art can only be art for art's sake, and that anything with a utilitarian purpose is craft and therefore less valued. Humans have always made things beautiful. It's just something we do. Entire cultures exist with no notion whatsoever of non-utilitarian art. Would you go back in time and disparage the ornate goldsmithing that adorns a Viking sword as just ornamentation and call it low art? You'd not only be arbitrarily applying an irrelevant standard, but you'd also anger a famously grouchy historical figure. I submit that these are both very bad ideas. I think that the refined skill used by anyone who is really good at what they do is functionally identical to any other skill in any other discipline. Variations are ultimately meaningless. Any work to which we truly dedicate ourselves can resonate at its own magical frequency and has the potential to reach others and connect them in a common resonance. When we look for ways to honor such work, wherever it's hiding, we make other humans feel good about what they're doing. And that kind of thing makes the world a little better. Democratize. I think we can all agree that the top tier artists in the world, especially if we include celebrities and movie stars, are paid far too much, and that it's too hard for the little folks to make a living. I have no idea how to accomplish this, but I do think the world would be better if we could shuffle the economics a bit, pay the big folks less, especially the ones charging an arm and a leg for duct tape bananas, and the normal-sized folks more. The internet once promised this, a level playing field where ideas could compete based on their merit and everyone had an equal chance to access a worldwide audience. This paradigm arguably existed for about 4 minutes in 1993, but then it vanished into the ether along with Jamiroquai's hat and the Oscar aspirations of Weekend at Bernie's 2. Perhaps it's still possible to level that playing field again if we all carefully curated our social media feeds to allow more individual creators and fewer multinational corporations, or maybe by actively seeking hidden gem artists at live events. The point is, if we like the idea of supporting smaller artists, we have to go out of our way to do it because it takes effort to fight the gravitational pull of systems that favor the big folks. The world gets better when we consciously support small creators. If we see a thing we like and we can afford it, we should buy it because that's what money is for. If we can't afford it, maybe we can promote it somehow so someone else can buy it. Every little bit helps, and small efforts are felt profoundly by the creators we can directly support. Don't be a jerk. If you have very refined artistic tastes, or you're just kind of picky, you're probably not going to like that very popular thing, and that's okay. It doesn't resonate with you. It's not for you. But when faced with a very popular thing that you don't like, you have a choice. 1, criticize it and disparage other folks who like it. Or 2, find something you like about it and talk about that. Or 3, keep your mouth shut. I believe that far too many people default to number 1, criticize and disparage. It's tiresome to hear too much criticism of things, especially when we're criticizing people for liking what they like. There's very little value in that. And I think it makes the world a little bit worse. What do we lose if we dwell on what's right about things instead of focusing on what's wrong? No one ultimately wins the whose music is better battle. The critic is a bully, and the one being criticized feels bad. And so I submit that all of us ought to back off a few notches when it comes to criticizing the taste of others. It's perfectly fine for you to like something that I don't like. I don't know the sum of your experience that leads you to like what you like, and I don't have the right to make you feel weird about it. Of course, comparing likes and dislikes is one of the ways humans get to know each other. But I think we do it wrong. We get defensive about our likes and aggressive about our dislikes, and we clash over them. That can be lots of fun when you're just talking trash with your friends, when it's truly playful sparring among equals. But when yours is the stronger personality, you're probably guaranteed that win. Congratulations, but you're probably being a jerk. It's in our nature to want other people to like the things we like, so we try to sell our likes to people. But I think we tend to oversell. It's an understandable instinct because I feel closer to you when I find out we like the same thing. It's just that we need to strive for a more compassionate balance here between sharing our own likes and allowing others the space for theirs. See the thing. Go to that performance, visit that museum, take the tour of the factory where they make your favorite salty snack. Watch that movie, even if it ends up being terrible. Be a supporter or a consumer or customer or patron if you can. Experience other folks' work. That's what it's there for. It's always easier not to do this, but we should all be actively talking ourselves out of doing things. We should constantly be on the lookout for things that tickle our brains the way art does, and we should go out of our way to experience them. It's good for us, and we know it. And of course, we should always be on the lookout for resonance in all its possible permutations, not just the obvious ones dressed up like art, but the sneaky ones disguised as some other aspect of techne, like a truly spectacular hamburger or a really good ink pen, like a Sharpie S Gel TM or a Pilot G207 TM, which are empirically the two best pens in the world. It's all the same stuff, after all. Everything's on a continuum of experiences that can elicit microscopic brain sparks or gargantuan brain exploding revelations or anything in between. And we have much better luck when we actively seek those experiences instead of waiting around for them to appear. Be cool while seeing the thing. We should always be sure that our experience of the work isn't interfering with other folks' experience. That, of course, means silencing our phones and never lighting up their screens during a movie, but it can also mean keeping the chit-chat to a minimum when we're within earshot of others, no matter where we're experiencing art. That's because art is too important to talk too much about. It deserves a little space to just exist, a little silence during which it can truly be heard. Talk prevents listening and clutters the air and clouds our vision and can pollute the impression other folks are getting from the work. In an art museum, unless we're asked for our opinion or we know for a fact that our insight might help enhance someone else's experience, we should probably keep it to ourselves, especially if we find ourselves spouting nonsense, which, as I've mentioned before, can make people like me feel stabby. Let's drink it in, take a beat. Then we can talk about it all we want, as long as we're being careful not to be art-splaining jerks. This is especially important at a live theater event. When we're talking, we're disturbing someone no matter what we're saying. Whispering is cool. Let's do that. Unless that is the person we're whispering to is inclined towards stabbiness, in which case we may want to let our thoughts remain unwhispered. At a concert, the experience is crystal clear. Let's enjoy the music with the other folks. But do we sing along at the top of our lungs? That's a maybe at best. Let's all be sure to read the room, shall we? Make the thing. One of the most tragic consequences of adulthood is its tendency to rob us of the casual confidence with which we created things as children. As little kids, we could stumble right in and make the thing without worrying at all about its quality. If we were really lucky, there were always adults around encouraging us to keep going, and we toddled headlong into each new creative experience. Then as we grew up, we started hearing criticism, and whether it was directed at us or not, it stuck in our head like an earworm. Criticism is one of the catchiest tunes ever written, and we hum it to ourselves incessantly. The safest, most logical response to criticism is to stop making things, and that's what most of us did. Eventually, we didn't even need someone else to deliver the criticism for us to hear it. The biggest obstacle to creativity is our own inner critic. Some of us can manage to make things in spite of it, but that critic is still always yammering away, making the making less fun. Imposter syndrome and many other creativity crippling diseases all come from the same source. It can be quite helpful to be able to look at our own work objectively enough to see what it needs. But we have to be mindful of the voice we use to tell ourselves what's missing. That voice knows precisely how to hurt our feelings most effectively, doesn't it? But that means that voice also knows exactly how not to hurt our feelings. If we can teach it to speak to us with a bit more tact and sensitivity, that voice can become a valuable ally. It's noble to try to power through all the internal and external resistance and force yourself to make a thing through sheer willpower. Set a schedule. Do the thing every day or every week or whatever works for you. Depending on how your brain is wired, that can be all you need to develop a creative habit that can turn into productivity, generating great work that resonates. My own brain is not wired this way and is arguably not wired at all. Most evidence suggests that it contains only Doritos and a green crayon and song lyrics and little bits of string. So I have to resort to other methods. Another way to reclaim our childhood confidence is to actively adopt an amateur's spirit with which you give yourself permission to constantly try new things, fueled by unfiltered, clumsy curiosity. This can be almost any pursuit, whether shared with others or kept private, and it doesn't matter whether you ultimately consider it a success or a dead end. You've tried something, you've learned something, and that's step one for everything. The negative consequences usually range from low to non-existent, and the possibility of stumbling upon something wonderfully resonant is always there. I've made the case that any human endeavor has room for that little spark of magic, and you're most likely to discover it when you're diving into uncharted waters. You may find that a new low-stakes activity can bring tremendous satisfaction, even if it's just for an audience of one, and you'll likely end up with some random expertise, which may trigger or inform some future activity or rekindle something you used to like to do. This is very good for us, and we should do it. We should do it for the reasons Kurt Vonnegut tells us to, because it enables our soul to grow, not because it's necessarily great or even good, but because it's a perk of being human. We should do it just for ourselves or for a tiny audience or for lots of folks, but we should do it because it's good work. We should seek specifically, intentionally, the intangible benefits. If tangible benefits show up and we're suddenly able to turn it into a side hustle, or if it helps us win friends and influence people, well, great. But we'll always get more out of it if we do it just because it's good for us. We should allow ourselves the grace to refrain from assigning too many labels to what we're doing until the time comes that a label or two might be useful. We can be an amateur when we're learning and a professional when we're selling. We can be a beginner or be experienced or struggling or successful. Ultimately, none of these labels are very helpful because they're binary, and our skills are more usefully imagined as being somewhere on a continuum in which all that really matters is resonance. Any beginner can stumble into some brilliant work, and any seasoned pro can generate garbage. It's not a level playing field by any means, and that's the point. It's rocky, uneven, slippery, and peppered with spring-loaded platforms like in a video game. Creative risks and reward are equally likely to knock you downhill or send you flying up. All we're ever going to achieve is a product that resonates at its frequency. It's some mix of our heart and our head, and it'll hit each member of its audience differently depending on how they're tuned. It might invite criticism or accolades or make us famous or infamous or make money or lose money. All of these results are ultimately independent of the work itself, so it's probably best to ignore them during the creative process. There is, of course, no single path for any given artist or even any individual work by that artist that will guarantee any predictable result, either artistic or commercial. That's the game, regardless of the nature of the work. Therefore, we should all figure out what our thing is and make it, and try hard not to worry too much about what the world ends up doing with it. We should do it because it feeds our soul. This is quite impossible, of course, but I still think it's good advice, don't you? Make the thing practically. There's a pervasive mythology surrounding folks who've made it as artists or actors or musicians in which their lack of a plan B was crucial to their success. I'd argue that there are just as many stories of successful creative careers in which the artist didn't quit their day job until after their creative career started paying the bills, and those folks are probably a few notches healthier from reduced cortisol levels and lower blood pressure than their fallback planless peers. Elizabeth Gilbert says it better. People often say they want to go into a creative career, and then they try to do that, and they end up in a place where the work they're doing is not quite creative enough to really stimulate their soul, and it's not quite career enough to keep them financially stable. In other words, they kind of sacrifice both. My feeling is, stop trying to marry these two things and separate them out. Choose your creative vocation, try to find the thing that brings your soul to animated life when you do it, and do that thing on your own. Do that thing by any means necessary. Turn yourself into it completely. and then find another way to pay the gas bill. When we're in debt and we've burdened our art with the task of paying our bills, we can't help but focus. When we're in debt and we've burdened our art with the task of paying our bills, we can't help but focus more on what we'll sell than what we want to make. I'm sure there are plenty of folks out there who can smoothly navigate this hazard and manage to pay the bills without making stuff they resent, but I rarely meet them. Compromise of some kind is inevitable, and it may or may not lead to an existential crisis in our creativity. For me, working at a day job I like and letting that fund my less than lucrative activities is healthier for my creative brain than stressing out about whether a painting is going to sell by the time the rent is due. Another practical tip I hear folks wondering a lot about is how to price their art. If you're lucky enough to get swept into a healthy gallery system, you'll likely have help figuring that out. But if you're all by yourself, especially when you're just starting out, pricing can be daunting. The problem is, of course, art is beyond value. Commerce is just plain incompatible with it. No price tag is ever really going to make sense. That's because the true value of art depends on its resonance, which is different for every viewer. That said, here's a possible way to start selling stuff that makes good sense to me. If you've managed to land on a piece of work that you want to start selling as a product in an online shop or gallery or vendor fair or street corner, you must first acknowledge that the thing you're selling is priceless and magical and that any price will be wrong. The great thing about what you're doing here, the reason it's worthwhile, is you're enabling others to put something you made into their lives. The thing you made resonates with them and will continue to do so when they take it home and put it on their wall or shelf or head if you make cool hats. That's bigger than the sticker price, and hopefully it's a source of fulfillment and motivation that keeps you going. Now, think about money and skill and time and materials. How long have you been doing this kind of art? Can you quantify your expertise? How much money would you pay yourself each day if you were a magical artist hiring, money paying fairy? If you've figured out how to do something that very few others know how to do, maybe your day rate should be very high. While if you're just starting, you might want to just figure out what a living wage is and start from there. Once you've decided on a day rate, look at the thing you're selling and ask yourself, how many of these can I make in one day? If the answer is 10 and your day rate is $200, then each piece should sell for at least $20. If the answer is 1, the price is $200. Or if the answer is, it takes me 3 days, it's $600. I'm bad at math, so you should probably run those numbers through a calculator, but you see my point. Remember to beef the prices up enough to account for materials, gas, and any other expenses, then start selling. If you sell out too fast, you're probably not charging enough. If you sell nothing, you're likely charging too much. Figure that out, get better, learn more, make cool things that get incrementally cooler every day, and keep bumping up your day rate as your business grows over time and as you get better and more experienced. Of course, this may not work at all. It depends on the market in which you're participating, what you're making and how you're making it, and hundreds of other factors. There's a whole art and science to this kind of selling, and there are no set rules. So a lot of this is trial and error, but as I said, this is just one idea, one possible place to start. All that said, and despite Elizabeth Gilbert's warnings, I've gotten a sneak peek at another path to what looks like a fulfilling creative career. I'm lucky to know quite a few culinary weirdos who make insane cakes and bonkers sugar sculptures and jaw-droppingly awesome painted cookies and much more. These folks are a fascinating species with far more skill and talent than anyone should be allowed to have. In many cases, they're running client-facing businesses where they navigate the give and take of a client request, then reliably elevate it into something magical. It's a superpower and an example of how a truly creative person can make something that's laser focused on resonating with its intended audience and on the art of service, as described in Chapter 3, all while making a living. The fact that the work is temporary just adds to the magic. Of course, this isn't any less work than any other path to success, but it does seem to generate a lot of happy weirdos. Honor education, access. We hear countless stories of arts education programs for incarcerated individuals which reduce recidivism. Could that be because they grant access to this fundamental human need we have without which we're rudderless? Could criminality itself be a consequence of insufficient access to the magic that's available within any discipline, but most directly accessible through the performing arts? Maybe. If you've been involved in theater, you've likely experienced the temporary family that's created when a group of theater kids of any age join forces to put on a show. Beyond the impact of whatever happens on the stage, we get a powerful sense of community from our fellow actors and directors and backstage superheroes / ninjas when we all join forces to make some words and or musical squiggles resonate with an audience. The inevitable but surprisingly painful heartbreak that happens when the show wraps is a testament to the impact a performance can have upon its participants. There's really nothing like it. The experience can be profoundly transformative and understandably habit-forming, but for some it can even be life-saving. We all know that a well-timed song or play or movie can provide the inspiration to bring someone back from a dark place. That happens because art is inherently good for humans, and it's tragic that we as a society undervalue it to such a degree. Tolstoy actually disparages formalized art education as a negative influence on society, seeing it as being in cahoots with all the other factors that make art into non-art by his overly moralistic standards. I'm a little on his side when it comes to the relatively small risk of art-splaining away all the magic, but I firmly believe that art education, literal access to paint and clay and great teachers, should be available to everyone. Only a few folks here and there will end up literally making a living making art. We very much need to let go of that foolish metric when we're evaluating what's worthwhile, especially for little kids, but also for big ones and grown-up looking ones and extremely old ones. Art programs have always been the first to face elimination when budgets get tight, probably because their benefits are too hard for short-sighted quantifiers to quantify. But I think it's also because those benefits are simply too immense to capture in words. Of course, I've also made the case that almost any discipline can provide that missing magic when the participants are properly tuned, whether or not we label it as art. Nearly every success story in which someone finds their purpose comes with a light bulb moment, a feeling almost exactly like an electrical switch being thrown, after which it's clear that an important discovery has been made and a new path forward has been cleared. That feeling exists even when we're creating for no one but ourselves, when the light from those light bulbs never lands on anyone but us. When we allow ourselves to steer into those revelations, we tap directly into the resonance we need and the world needs from us. But until we manage to value all good work on a spectrum of quality and nurture folks through whichever disciplines provide them with the resonance we all need, we should at the very least be working hard to guarantee that everyone starts out with unfettered access to the arts. Art adds profoundly beneficial wrinkles to our smooth little brains. It should be part of our care and feeding instructions when we are adopted by aliens shopping for pets, and it should be woven into everyone's lives, especially in education, both formal and informal. That's crucial for fixing everything that's wrong with everything, but especially art. Chapter 6, Conclusion. The lamps are different, but the light is the same. When you do things from your soul, you feel a river moving in you, a joy. Rumi, pre-1273, because he didn't write much post-1273. Author's note. This is where I try to squish all the ideas from the previous chapters into this one. This conclusion will save you the trouble of rereading, plus you can probably use it verbatim as a book report if your teacher isn't paying much attention. Because it's magic. Movies can make us cry. It happens when they resonate with us somehow. A story on the screen can speak to us in a way not much else can. A given scene might kick off an emotion, whether it's rooted in memory or nostalgia or hope or fear or whatever it is. The sum total of our experience has led us to resonate with what's playing on the screen, and we tear up. Music can hit us the same way, especially if we're at a live performance. If you sing the right note into an acoustic guitar, the string tuned to that note will begin to vibrate. Experiencing music we love can feel like that. We resonate with what we're hearing to such a degree that it can set off fireworks in our brain. If you try to describe your favorite song to a friend who hasn't heard it and attempt to really convey to them what it's like and why you like it, you won't get more than a few words in before you start fumbling for words that either don't exist or have very slippery definitions. Your language will utterly fail to capture the depth of your feelings. Your words will always fall short. That's because it's magic. It's beyond language. Your friend just won't understand until they hear the song. Of course, they may or may not like it, depending on how they're tuned, but at least you can stop fumbling and join them as they listen. Theater, dance, and any other performance art can also set off those mental fireworks, but only if we're tuned in like that guitar string. Most of us are pre-tuned to resonate with movies and music because they're usually quite easy to understand, but some other art forms don't tend to resonate as readily. Some folks are deeply uncomfortable with musical theater because they're hung up on the unreality of watching characters spontaneously bursting into songs with strangers, and someone like that isn't likely to get too misty during a performance. But another audience member might be a terminally tuned-in theater kid who can scarcely resist bursting into song themselves, and it's a safe bet that they'll be an emotional wreck during the curtain call. They resonate with the work because they've been on stage. They have some real familiarity with the medium, and they're going to ruin their mascara. Visual art can resonate too, but it's quieter. We're therefore less apt to feel strong emotion in the presence of a painting or a sculpture, and more likely to react in a more cerebral way, if at all. After asking the literary question, "What is art?" 1897, Leo Tolstoy answered with something like, "Anything that communicates emotion." That's pretty broad, but I agree. If art wasn't communication, we wouldn't need to show it to each other at all. We could just keep it to ourselves, but we share it with others because it seems absurd not to. Each of us is an infinitely complex network of bits and pieces, many of which are both weird and squishy. So we're much more like elaborate harps that span 1,000 octaves than we are like individual guitar strings. We can always retune a bit, but we're also affected by humidity and temperature, and because all metaphors should be stretched until they break, cholesterol and puberty and microbiomes and social media and school and jobs and cartoons. So each of us likes what we like for infinitely complex and evolving reasons, and we should allow each other space for that. I believe that performance resonates so deeply with us because art that we resonate with makes us feel seen and heard, just as we see and hear what the artist is doing. When art really works well, it does feel like communication, but the language it's speaking is made of everything except words. It's not a cultural construct or blunt abstraction. It feels more like magic. That magic comes from our ingrained need for community. We crave and require a tribe, and ultimately performance art is a tribal experience. When we're resonating with the art and the artist and the audience, we're part of this spontaneous little tribe, united by resonance. We're in a wordless conversation that tickles our brains. To me, it feels a little like pride, as though I'm weirdly proud of the performer, or perhaps of humanity itself for manifesting this magic. It may only last a moment, but it's far greater than the sum of its parts. Another surefire way to make me cry, show me the Olympics. Perhaps some of you monsters have not cried while watching a gymnastics routine, but I have many times. And for me, the experience is very similar to being moved by a movie. Is it that pride in humanity idea again? I'm certainly proud of the athletes when they do well, but it's also true that the lines between art and sports get especially blurry during events when there's an artistic category like figure skating. It's a bunch of judges fumbling to quantify the quality of the art, which always feels a little strange to me. But there's magic there, and all of us have felt it, except for the monsters among us. And after you've been moved by that gymnastics routine, try to convey the experience of what you saw to someone who didn't see it. Just like in that describe your favorite song exercise, you'll find yourself using more vague words with slippery definitions because the task simply can't be done. I think we cry at movies and at the Olympics for almost identical reasons. The more non-performance Olympic sports can resonate too, but just like visual art, they're quieter, more guitar string whispering. I'm rooting for a good performance when I'm watching a downhill skier, and I appreciate the difficulty and can feel a species of pride about it, but I just don't resonate as much with skiing as with figure skating. It's just how I'm tuned. But if you are, or know, a hardcore baseball fan, you've likely participated in the retelling of an amazing anecdote from one World Series or another, a story of an experience that can't quite be articulated because you had to be there. A true baseball fan is acutely tuned to baseball, able to appreciate the nuance in every aspect of it, resonating with even the smallest whisper from the experience of a good game. Is that magic too? Yes. Big, loud magic is in performance, like a movie or dance performance or concert or gymnastic or figure skating routine. And quieter, More subtle magic is in a painting or sculpture or ski run or baseball game. In fact, almost any kind of work humans do, regardless of whether it's considered creative, can carry bits of that magic, as long as the human cares enough about the work to do it truly well. Not as many of us will be tuned to appreciate it, but for those of us who are, the experience of appreciating any work done with great care and skill is functionally identical to the experience of appreciating art we like. It's all the same stuff. I keep calling it magic, and Robert Pirsig in Lila 1991 calls it dynamic quality, and both of us may be right. It's a thing which, by definition, cannot be defined. It will always fall just outside our ability to capture it using language, no matter how hard we try. All our words will fall short every time. It simply must be experienced. For all great work, there's the spark of creativity or inspiration or magic. Then there's the execution, the skill required to deliver that magic. If you make something amazing and never show it to anyone, then it's just for you, and that's fine. You got what you got out of making it. Maybe you learned something. Maybe it was therapeutic. It was for an audience of one, and it only needed to reach you, nobody else. When you see a big block of unbroken text, you know it's going to take some extra effort to read it. But if a block of text is broken up into paragraphs, grouped under headings, perhaps sprinkled with a bullet list or two, suddenly it becomes very easy to read. That's because the writer took a moment to think about you, the reader, and adjusted the layout to improve the clarity and organization of the text. In the same way, we'll rarely see the magic in art if it's not polished up at least enough to reach us. The initial inspiration is a bit like if you were to write a big block of flow of consciousness text. There may be real poetry in there, but it's muddled together with gibberish and misspellings and needlessly long words. If the point is a therapeutic brain dump, you're done after the first pass. But if the point is communicating with others, you've got a little more work to do. When that work is done and balance is achieved, when the inspirational, magical core of the work is wrapped up in a package that's really accessible, that's when work has the potential to become enormously impactful and maybe popular too. I think we should always actively remove as many obstacles to resonance as we can. We can't lose the magic in the process. That's the big challenge here. But the highest quality work lies somewhere between its initial inspiration and the balance we work to achieve. We usually allow our personal resonance to be dismissed by what's popular or critically acclaimed or culturally accepted. We tend to follow the guidelines provided by various cultural gatekeepers over our own taste. But we're all tuned how we're tuned, and we'll resonate differently with all of it. And we should allow that resonance to guide us toward what we like and make and do and buy and enjoy. So while this may look or feel like a small personal shift in perception or reaction to the world around us, I'm ultimately calling for what amounts to an act of cultural defiance, a reorganization of how we think about art and craft and skill, in which we value all things according to how they resonate with us, not based on how external forces want us to value them. This could help repair what's wrong with art by reorganizing how we make it, consume it, sell it, interact with it. It would undoubtedly make a lot of folks cranky, but it would ultimately make more folks feel better. Beyond art, this shift could also help us appreciate folks who are very different from us, who are providing their community with quality work of any description. When we appreciate them through the work they do well, recognizing their work as a service to others, we connect with them just like we connect with any artist and their work. I think that makes the world incrementally better. Guided by resonance, we should pay hugely popular artists far less and pay the small-scale makers we like far more. We should cultivate an immunity to the influence of cultural gatekeepers, value the sense of community we get while experiencing something together, and honor the service of everyone doing good work across all disciplines, giving it the respect it so richly deserves. Because it's magic. You have been listening to Low Art, High Craft, and Exquisite Spatulas, written and read by Mike Craighead, copyright 2025. Visit lowarthighcraft.com for print, ebook, and other formats. Music by Mike and by Melanie Fangs, that's with a Z. For more music, visit MikeCraighead.com and MelanieFangs.bandcamp.com, respectively.